Whoa, whoa, guys, hang on. I'm still here. I'm still here. You don't have to go anywhere.
Don't nobody go nowhere.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Nick. Sorry for the couple weeks long break there. We had 2 weekends where we didn't play because players were home for Thanksgiving break, and so I made a video in the meantime but didn't get both weeks, so I apologize. It's been 2 weeks since the video. I was bummed like you were, but here we are. We're back at it. I promise it was worth it. This week was nuts. It was great. It was so much fun, so I hope you really enjoy what we got coming this week. Just as a heads up, there will only be one more campaign diary after this one until probably late January because players will go home for Christmas break. I will try to think of some video topics and maybe record some non-campaign diary videos over that month-long break. I may do an actual one-shot and a video talking about one-shots, so there's a lot of possibilities in there. I will commit to definitely doing videos, but probably not every week, especially around Christmas there. It gets real busy, so there will still be videos. Don't worry, the channel's not dying or anything, but it might slow down a little bit over the break. But anyways, all that stuff out of the way, let's get to this week. When last we left our heroes, the players have been exploring the island of Wanale, trying to oust a lizard folk tribe from a stronghold that they wanted to claim as their own, this castle up on a cliffside. They had discovered also that their companion Travis had wandered off in the middle of the night while they were in camp in that jungle. And they followed his tracks for a while, and it turned out that Travis had likely been captured by the lizard folk after he had wandered off. And so now they have to go and rescue their friend. In addition to that, they still need to get the lizard folk tribe out of that castle. So save their friend, kick out the lizard folk tribe. They got their work cut out for them. And their plan is to go north and enlist the help of an orcish tribe who has members of their tribe enslaved by the lizard folk, and maybe they can entice them into helping them siege this castle and save them. So they're all set to do this plan. They're going to sail north and go enlist the tribe. At the very end of last session, Callister decided to go by himself to the castle to ask a question of one of the orcish slaves there. He would go invisible and be able to just talk in private quietly with one of the orcish slaves and get some information to maybe have a leg up on the negotiations with the orcish tribe. Not a terrible idea in and of itself, but he went by himself to an unexplored part of the castle and got eaten by crocodiles. It was a real bummer of a day for him. What are you going to do? However, because he was on his own, the players are unaware that he is dead. So they think maybe he's captured by the lizard folk, who knows. But in their minds now there are 2 people to rescue from the lizard folk tribe. It just makes their timetable that much shorter. Let's get going. So that's where we started this session. They sailed north. They went to the place where they suspected the orc tribe to be and started to explore for them. And they have a half-orc in their party. Clement, and the only reason that they were not ambushed when they discovered an orcish hunting party was because they had this half-orc. And so the orcish hunting party tried to talk to and speak with the half-orc. However, because the half-orc was turned into one via the reincarnate spell, he doesn't speak orcish. So he did this really funny thing where he tried to parrot back and literally just copy the sounds and words that the orcs were making to him, and because he is a sorcerer, he's pretty good at performance. And so all the orcs were sort of amused by this exchange. They don't really know what the orcs were saying to the players, and so they don't know what Clement repeated back to them. So now they are being led by these orcs, this whole group. There's like 12 orcs surrounding them, leading them somewhere. And some of the players are kind of freaked out by this. There's orcs on all sides. They've got spears. They're leading us somewhere into the jungle. Until they realize that this is precisely what they wanted. This is their ideal circumstance. This was their goal. They need to find the orcs. This is the plan. So it's very important to remember why you are doing things, both as a player and as a party as a whole. So they are taken, and finally they arrive at the orcish village, and they are presented to the chief, Modek, of the tribe. And after some interesting language barrier role-playing, they finally realize he can speak common. So they begin their negotiations in earnest, much relieved that he can actually communicate, at least to some degree, with the players themselves. And so they go back and forth, and the players make a well-reasoned argument for, hey, you can save some of your people. You have people that are slaves to the lizard folk, and your natural enemies are the lizard folk, and we can figure this out. and we can help each other and all that, and it's well reasoned, well presented, but I figure it's not enough to get the help of the orcs for free. And the orcs themselves are thinking, hey, how do we know we can trust you? How do we know you're capable warriors? How do we know you won't just betray us to the lizard folk and this isn't a trap set up by them in the first place? So you have to prove yourselves to us as capable warriors and trustworthy allies. You have to do that. And so the players say, that sounds kind of reasonable. How can we do that? Which is exactly what I wanted them to ask. So the chief lays out the orcs' other problem. In addition to the lizard folk, they are also being hunted by something in the jungle. Something that the orcs call terror and wrath. It's this monstrosity, this thing, this evil that hunts in the woods, and if orcs stray too far, or wander off on their own, or leave the tribe at night, they never are seen from again. And so it's this, I set it up to be this otherworldly monstrosity sense of evil, and not just like your average beast in the woods. I wanted it to feel more like the Predator from the movie The Predator. It also hunts with this beastly, monstrous companion, and so the players are asked, bring back the head of Terror and Wrath, or its companion, and we will know that you are capable allies and trustworthy, and we will fight with you. And so the players say, that seems reasonable to us. Go find a thing to kill a thing to get some allies. It's a very classic D&D kind of adventure. Makes a lot of sense. In order to ensure that the orcs know that they did a good job and they're not going to leave and just tell the lizard folk where the orcish tribe is, and to make sure that they are really, in fact, capable warriors, the orcs are sending two people along with them. They send one of their most fearsome and notorious warriors, Ukula, played by Hunter. Hunter is Travis's player, and I didn't want Hunter to have nothing to do for a while Travis is captured, so we rolled up this orcish warrior captain for him. They are also given this younger human who sort of proved himself. He was taken as a captive by the orcs, but now he's proved himself as a semi-competent warrior, and so the orcs kind of tolerate him. He's sort of the lowest man on the totem pole, but at least he's on the pole, I guess. This is Ryu the fighter. This is Jason's new character, and so he is very excited to introduce himself to the group and start to make friends and allies with this group as they go off and try to find Terror and Wrath. So the party has the plan to go off and set a trap for them. They need to set up. Ukula and Ryu are going to be in the middle of a clearing with a campfire by themselves, and the other three players, Tico, Clement, and Ograr, will be in the treetops from a vantage point, sort of watching the camp and being the trap that they were going to spring. So they set up, they kept watch for hours, and nothing happened. All night. Nothing happened. And this was for a couple of reasons. One, I had forgotten to introduce the bad guy in a way that I had wanted to. I had a specific setup for how I wanted them to be introduced, and I had just sort of forgotten in the midst of players traveling and making checks and me trying to remember all the details. I literally just forgot to set it up, and I also justified that it was probably reasonable that the hunter would maybe intuit that this was a trap, or not be in this area of the jungle at this time, or doing something else. So I sort of covered my own tracks by not telling the players anything. I just said, yeah, nothing happens. What's your plan now? So like, okay, shoot, we have to come up with a new idea. And so they went all the way back to the village and got a long rest, because they didn't have a long rest from keeping vigil all night. So they got their long rest and removed that point of exhaustion and got all their stuff back, and they heard that while they were gone in the night, an elderly orc had gotten up and used the bathroom in the middle of the night and has not been seen since. And they go to the site where he was, and there was some blood, and it seemed like there were tracks leading away from it. And so this let me set up exactly how I wanted to introduce this bad guy. They followed the tracks, and they eventually found this large clearing, and at the far end of it, hanging from a bough, by its neck, is this elderly orc. Ukula immediately rushes into the clearing and tries to go and cut down the orc, who's very much dead at this point, but he wants to go and respect the body. However, he is doing so at a headlong pell-mell rush and does not notice the traps in the ground, and he falls through a pit trap, and at the bottom of the pit trap there are spikes. And on the spikes are a poison. And so I ask him to make his saving throw for the poison, and he rolls a natural 20. And for my house rules, if you roll a natural 20 on a saving throw, you take no damage. Even if a spell says you would take half damage, you take no damage. And so he rolls a natural 20. However, this is a poison specifically crafted by a hunter of orcs to hunt orcs, and Ukula is an orc. So the saving throw is at disadvantage. He rolls again and he fails it. So instead of taking no damage, he takes 30 damage and is paralyzed at the bottom of this spiked pit. So the players all enter much more cautiously and try to scout the area a little more, and this is how I wanted to introduce this hunter. He's a skilled and powerful hunter who has specifically crafted things to hunt orcs. There's traps, there's all kinds of things in this clearing, and at that moment, this hunter, the Terror and Wrath, appears in a tree bough, 30 or 40 feet up in the air, and starts firing arrows into the party. It was a very intense exchange here at the beginning of this fight. What followed next was what I feel like is one of my coolest combat encounters that I've ever run or played in. I feel like I might have watched my own video on designing combat encounters. But anyways, the players are fighting and they realize that Terror and Wrath has a beastly companion. It is a Commodon, and they have fought one or two actually in the previous session, and so they know these things are bad news. They're trying to figure out how to fight Terror and Wrath, who's fighting from up in a tree bough, and the Commodon is down on the ground engaging the melee characters. And however, after several fireballs, a tidal wave, and a shatter spell, the branch that Terror and Wrath is shooting from breaks, snaps, and he falls to the ground. At this point, Terror and Wrath pulls back their hood, for they are indeed a humanoid, and reveals a half-elven visage and says, "Who are you? What are you doing? Why are you trying to save these orcs?" And the players give their reasons and sort of say who they are, and then they ask who this individual is. This individual says, "I am Ararath Orcsbane." And my players, and probably two of my viewers, freaked out. Because they all know that Ararath is a former PC from a previous campaign. It's Jason's old character. Ararath was so prejudiced and loathsome towards orcs that he would seek them out to kill them. Not just hate them when he fought them, but go and get them as much as he could. So they are fighting the extension of his character. And when you end a campaign with me, I ask you, what would your character be doing? And Jason said, "I'm probably going to go try to hunt as many orcs as I can." And I said, "Awesome. That's coming up next time." And boy, did it. They can see from this fight that Ararath is a powerful fighter, and the players also know that he must be incredibly high level because they ended last campaign at 12th level, and it seems like he hasn't slowed down since then. So what followed next was an incredible exchange. The players didn't want to keep fighting because they knew he was really powerful, and they were kind of worried about that, but they also had to have this rational and logical argument with somebody who seemed sane and rational, but was also definitely a genocidal maniac. So it was a very interesting conversation, exchange on race and what makes someone a person and what gives a person value and humanity. And it was very interesting as the players were trying to logic and reason their way around somebody who was very clearly racist and is not thinking about it logically. And we had a lot of fun going back and forth, and I think it was very interesting having a real conversation. It's always great when this hobby of ours brings up real discussions and real issues, and we can talk about race and what makes a person and value and things like that. It was very interesting. It was a very cool exchange, and I thought the players did a great job of trying to talk someone down from this situation. Because Ararath was offering the players a deal. He said, "Hey, I don't have any beef with you. Leave, let me kill the orcs, and we have no problem. Just walk away. Why are you trying to save the orcs? Doesn't make any sense." This exchange, this deal, couldn't be accepted. It was cut short because Ukula had gotten rid of the paralysis and climbed out of the pit, and then flew into a rage and attacked Ararath. Well, he tried, because as soon as he moved forward, Ararath stepped back, touched the tree that was near him, and vanished. What followed next was a second half of an amazing fight. The melee characters were trying to pin down and kill this Commodon. The range characters were trying to locate and attack Ararath. Ararath was using tree stride to jump back and forth at various altitudes in the trees and fire arrows and then relocate. And the players were very overwhelmed by his tactics. It was clear that they were fighting somebody who was incredibly powerful but also very tactically intelligent and was not going to just wade into the middle of all of these foes and engage them in melee where he could be easily outnumbered and overwhelmed. And eventually the players had no real answer for Ararath's constant teleporting and moving around the battlefield, and I really didn't try to plan for them to have an answer. That's not up to me, that's sort of up to them. I didn't plan for them to have a way to win. I just said it makes sense that Ararath is here and this is what he would do and how he would fight, so I'm going to let him do it. If the players want to figure out a way around that, that's up to them. If they want to all run, okay. If they want to die, okay. If they want to make a deal, okay. That's up to them. And they had a really interesting way of solving the problem. The fight looked pretty dire. There were a couple people who were very low, and they had no way to answer Ararath's teleportation and altitude. So Ukulo, very low on hit points, says, wait, stop, hang on. You say orcs have no humanity. They never do anything for anyone else, and so they're not worth anything. If I throw myself into this spike pit trap and kill myself, will you leave my tribe alone and let all these people go? He's making the ultimate sacrifice here. He's trying to prove that orcs really do have value. I thought it was a brilliant move from Hunter. It was so cool. Ararath pauses and then accepts. And so he throws himself down into the spike pit. However, because he was raging, he was able to reduce the damage from the spikes, so he still had 1 hit point left. And then he took the poison, and it reduced him below 0. However, orcs and half-orcs have a racial trait which allows them to, if they go to 0 hit points once a day, they can bounce back to 1 hit point. So he's paralyzed, laying face down at the bottom of this pit with 1 hit point, still alive. However, for all intents and purposes, to all appearances, he committed suicide to save his group. And the party kind of waits, sees for a minute. There's no more arrows. It's very quiet. And they move on. They recover the body of their friend and bring him back to his tribe, and Ukula, to his credit, kept up the ruse the entire time. It seemed like it had worked. It seems like they were successful in their negotiation and they were able to bring him back to the tribe. It was a brilliant move. It was a brilliant exchange. I thought the players handled it really well when they had sort of a no-win situation. They pulled something out and it was fantastic. So they brought them back to the village, and luckily the melee characters had managed to kill the Commandant, so they brought its head back to the tribe, presented it to the chief Modek, who accepted it and celebrated and realized that, okay, these are successful warriors and we can trust them. Let's go to work here. Let's get rid of these lizard folk. And as soon as the chief praised them for managing to kill Terror and Wrath's pet, the entire party had a collective oh moment. Because if somebody who speaks kind of broken common hears the name Ararath, it might sound like Terror and Wrath. And the players all thought that was very clever. I didn't think so, but awesome, great, I'm glad you did, that's all that matters. So that's where we left things. The players have enlisted the help of this orcish tribe to go and defeat the lizard folk and save a companion, hopefully companions, but they don't know Callister is dead, unfortunately. And so that's where they're going to go. Maybe Ararath has disappeared into the jungle. Maybe he comes back with a vengeance. Who knows? There is definitely more possibilities down that storyline. But for now, we are going to go and assault the keep. And that's probably where we will end this semester. Sort of the chapter will be whether or not they successfully take over the stronghold that they are trying to remove the lizard folk from. So very crazy, but that's where we're going to go next week. I have no idea what they're going to try to do for this siege, so I guess my plan is to just map out and have a whole plan for what is that stronghold and where all those lizard folk might be in it, and whenever they interact with it, I'll be ready. So that's the plan. We'll see what happens next week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.